Hello, this is Jamie Magritte. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. It's a pretty simple one, but I think it looks quite elegant. So let's get started. For consumables, I have a strip of gold foil. It's 3/4 inches wide. I'm just going to cut 3 little flags off of it. So we're probably only going to need about 3 inches of that. I have a scrap of white to stamp butterflies on and die cut out. I have a piece of white which is 2.5 by 4 inches, and that's just for the main piece to stamp on. I have a piece of old olive which is 2 inches by 5.5 inches, and this we're going to emboss. I have a piece of old olive which we're going to die cut a rectangle out of to mat behind this piece. And then I have my card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. For the stamp, I'm using Positive Thoughts. I'm using the fern and this butterfly. And for the sentiment, I just cut apart these 3 here. You can just mask it, but I'm just going to use the hugs. Then I have the Nature's Thoughts dies, and I'm using that. I'm using this frame here to cut the old olive to go behind the stamped piece, and I'm using the butterfly to cut out 3 butterflies. And then I have the Coastal Weave 3D embossing folder that we're going to emboss this piece with. Okay, let's get started. Let's do our embossing first. Get that out of the way. So I've got, bring in my embossing folder. I'm going to line it up in here so that it's even with the line here, so I know it's going in there straight. Close it up. Then this is one of the new ones, the 3D ones. So I need, on my Big Shot, I'm not going to use the thin die adapter. Just going to use the Big Shot platform. Place this on top. Then I'm going to be using the blue mat. Okay, and I'll be right back. I'm going to run that through my machine. Okay, I'm back. I've got that embossing fold. There it is. See all the detail in that? It's so awesome. Okay, so I'm done with that. I'm going to bring in the green base here. I'm bringing out this die here. I'm going to center it in the center of this so I can use this as a layer something else. I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine, and again I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I've cut that out. I have, you can see the nice little texture around the edge, I believe. And then I have a frame I can use for a layer on another card. Okay, so let's put this away so I don't lose it. Alright, place that aside, place this aside. Now on this one, we're going to bring in this stamp here, the fern, and the old olive ink. And I'm going to stamp it once, full strength, and then I'm going to stamp off twice. Ink it up good. Make sure it's got good ink on it. Right in the center, I'm going to stamp it once. And I'm going to move over. The stem is going to stay in the same area, but I'm going to turn it, stamp it again, and then turn it the other direction and stamp it again. So I have 3 different shades of the same ink. Okay, done with the green ink. I'm going to bring in the memento and the butterfly. And I'm going to stamp one up here. I'm going to stamp one down here. Okay, put that aside for a minute. Bring in this scrap, and I'm going to stamp 3 others. Trying to make sure I get a really good stamped image. That one's not too good. Let's... I think I need to re-ink this memento. That's better. One more. I want to get a couple of very good images. It's okay to have extras. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's bring this one back in. On the memento ink again. Let me try a different one that might be a little bit darker. Try this one. Okay, and I want to show you on the stamp, I've literally just cut between the words, making sure not to cut any of the words off so I can piece it back together and have a single stamp, but I just wanted the hugs. Okay, and I'm going to ink that up. Oh yeah, this one looks more juicier. And then I'm going to stamp this right down here in this section down here. Oh, much better. Look how much darker that is. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, let me show you then. Okay, now we're going to bring in our Stampin' Blends. These inky stamps out of the way. And I'm going to take the Cajun Craze. It's a light. And I like working with the brush tip, but you can use any one you want. I'm just going to do a little bit of dark with Cajun Craze along the tops and the wings. Okay, then I'm going to come in with the Light Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to color in the rest of the wings. I'm going to go over that Cajun Craze a little bit so as to try to blend it out just a little bit. And then I color right up to the body so I have this nice, so it doesn't have all that white space. See? Okay, let me finish this up. I'll just do these other 2 real fast. Not a lot of coloring. Very simple actually. Okay, now I'm going to get the die that matches. take it over to my die cutting machine and cut those out. And I do recommend you tape them down because they have a tendency to slide. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I got those cut out. So what I'm going to do is bring in a bone folder. I'm just going to put the paper down between my thumb and the bone folder and just give those wings just a little bit of a curl. And then I'm going to just lift them up at the center. Do that with all three of those. Oh, didn't want to bend. There we go. Alright, I've got those. Now we can start layering up our card. Place those over here. Bring in our pieces. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is add this piece that we embossed with the 3D embossing folder. Go to this section over here. I'm going to use the double mono multi-glue. I'm going to use a little bit more glue because it's dimensional. But you don't want to use so much glue that it's oozing out. So I use quite a bit of a thin layer. See? It's very thin. There's not a lot of glue on there. But there's enough that I can wiggle it into place. And it's going to go right along the folded edge, top to bottom. It looks like it's going to hang off just a hair. So I'm going to bring in my little mini trimmer here. Bring that in. I'm going to use my finger to line up the card with the edge. And then I'm going to trim that off. Perfect. You can see it just trimmed just a tiny little smidge off. Okay, now one thing I did forget to do was make the little gold banners. So I'm going to bring in the tailored tag punch and that 3/4 inch piece of gold foil. I'm going to bring it in from the top where you can just barely see both corners, and I'm going to punch. That's going to give me a perfect little tag. Bring in a pair of scissors. My snips here. And I'm going to cut them about like that, about 1 inch. And I need 3 of those. And now you could cut them down to length beforehand, but I find it easier to do this because then you don't have to mess with posted tape to hold them in, to get them into the, or you could cut them by hand, the little flags. This is just easier. Okay. Now let's adhere the butterfly to the front of this. Again, I'm using the liquid glue. Center it up in the center of that. It's going to go right in between those stitch lines that are in there. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this. There we go. I'm putting quite a few, but I'm keeping them off of the edge a little bit so that I have room for the gold foil off this edge. Okay, take those backs off. If you have trouble with the dimensionals not wanting to stay stuck, just poke it with your finger and then it'll pop up those edges a little bit. Makes it easier to get the backing off as well. Okay, well, this is going to get centered on this side, a little bit higher from the bottom, so it's like this side and this side are the same distance. Okay, now we're going to take the wet glue and put a little bit on the back of our flag, not a lot, and we're going to slide one in here. You want one in quite a ways so it's just sticking out maybe a little more than 1/4 of an inch. The next one's going to stick out a little bit farther down below it. This one's coming down from the bottom, and that's just to bring your eye around the page. Oh, come on. I'm hitting the dimensional. I gotta move over just a hair. Okay, now we're going to bring in our butterflies and some glue dots. You could use the Tombow, that would work too. Let's use the Tombow. Put a little Tombow down the center. I'm going to stick them right on top of those black ones that we already stamped. On the two. Okay, the third one, we're going to put a dimensional on the back of. The bottom part of it. Because the top part's going to be on there. And we're going to add that one right here. There we go. There's the card we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Well, thank you so much for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find some time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.